Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm John Schwartz, and welcome back to all our students and student athletes here on the Case Western Reserve University campus as we get set to begin an unusual semester in the fall 2020. And here joining us today is Athletic Director Amy Backus, who, kind of certainly been an interesting couple of months, and we want to get her perspective on that. Amy, thank you for joining us today. And if you can, just start us off with the message you have to our student athletes and our student body in general as they come back onto campus to begin this semester.
Thanks, John. I will concur. It's a very unusual time, a very unusual fall, but we're really excited to have everybody back on campus. Of course, not everyone was able to be back, but I would say, listening to our coaches and seeing all the students here for their physicals and their Zoom meetings with eligibility compliance, we have a really good group of people back on campus. They want to be back. They want to see their teammates. They want to continue to work out and improve their skills for their sport.
Amy, if you could take us through what this summer was like. I think there's a perception out there that a lot of people think it was, kind of like a light switch, like on and you have sports, off and you don't. And there was certainly a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of decision-making with different groups. Take us through what this summer was like for you as you had to get us closer to making a decision whether to compete or not in the fall.
Sure. One of the first things we did, John, was to establish what we call our department's COVID action team. And this was a group of people made up from across the board. Our two team physicians, we had head coaches, we had administrators, our head athletic trainer, student athlete reps. And it was an opportunity for us to really put our heads together and try to get through some very, very difficult questions. And you're right, the summer was nonstop. It was nonstop Zoom meetings. I was also on two university-wide committees committed to getting people, back on campus safely. So the COVID action team did a lot of work this summer in regards to really understanding what the NCAA guidelines were all about. And as you can imagine, these changed dramatically over the summer. And there were also a lot of conversations with our UAA athletic director peers, as well as the PAC. I was on weekly meetings with all those athletic directors as we were trying to formulate and make decisions about what we were going to do for the fall. So it was quite busy.
Amy, I think one of the other interesting things to this is that the information changed so quickly, where it seemed like, 1 week you would have a plan that worked and then some information would come out, whether it's the CDC or the NCAA, and then all of a sudden things would change on the drop of a dime almost. You had to go back to the drawing board. Can you talk a bit about that process and going through all those changes so quickly?
At times, John, it felt as though we would take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. We would make plans and think this is the direction that we were going to go. And then, as you said, things changed, whether it was, state guidelines, CDC or NCAA guidelines would change, as well as university guidelines, as CWRU was trying to find the best ways to bring people back to campus safely. We had to merge all of those guidelines together. And as you said, it was ever changing. So at times it felt a little futile to be making plans for the fall, because at any moment, they could all be completely blown up. But we just had to keep going and make changes along the way.
Well, we do have certainly a good portion of the student athletes back now here, whether they're living on campus or off campus. And in the next couple of weeks, the plan is for them to, start practicing to some extent. Can you talk a little bit more about what the plan is for we'll start with the fall varsity sports coming in this fall. What was the plan for them to practice and to participate in their sport?
Sure. Well, once we knew that we were not going to be able to compete, it was really important for us to be able to provide some sort of opportunity for our student athletes to engage in their sport. And when we knew that classes were going to start on August 24th, the COVID action team really thought it would be beneficial to give everyone a chance to get used to their new living environments, their new class schedules, the new university guidelines. So we really gave a 2-week buffer, John, between when classes started and when we're going to have supervised workouts with our strength and conditioning coaches and our coaches. So we will hope to start on September 7th, and our student athletes are working with their coaches at that point. The first phase, or 14 days, is really about acclimatization. You know, everybody's coming from a different place. Maybe student athletes were in states that, you know, gyms weren't open. There wasn't an opportunity necessarily to work out. And so these first 14 days are all about kind of getting back in shape and making sure that people are ready to go into the next step. So that's really what we're concentrating on now with our T3 coaches: conditioning, lifting, getting cardio back, that type of thing.
How about for our winter sports teams? I'll even extend this to the spring sports that practice in the fall typically, and certainly we have winter sports teams that practice and play in the fall. Obviously, competition postponed until at least January 1 right now, but talk a little bit about what those teams can expect to see their fall look like as they're on campus.
Well, they'll start a little bit later, John, and again, really trying to make sure that our facility is set, our athletic trainers are good to go. So because we're not competing, the pressure to start right away is not necessarily as great as it usually is. So those are non-traditional sports of baseball and softball are also making decisions about when they're going to be able to start. So the NCAA actually moved the official start date for basketball, for example, from October 15th to October 1st. We're still working out some of those details as to whether or not that's going to be the date that they'll start their official practice or not. But essentially, they'll be doing the same thing that fall sports will. They'll be utilizing a phased-in approach, making sure that everybody is acclimated back to campus and in shape.
Big topic of conversation, and not just at the D3 level, and certainly not just at Case Western Reserve, but we're seeing at the D1 level, is fall sports competing in the spring. Will there be an opportunity for fall sports to compete intercollegiately in the spring, or do you anticipate there being an opportunity? What does that look like right now?
I think your guess is as good as ours. I think it really depends on the state of COVID in the country, in the state, in our community. And we certainly want to provide those opportunities if they become available in a safe way. And right now, again, athletic administrators in both of our leagues are keeping that possibility open. And we'll listen to those discussions because we certainly want to give our student athletes a chance to compete. There are obviously a lot of obstacles and challenges in trying to cram all of our sports into, you know, one season. It's difficult for support staff. It's tough on facility usage, but if there's a way to do it, I think we'll come together and find a way to do it.
You know, said it a million times, and you know, it's a year that looks different from others, and nothing seems to be, you know, nothing is going to be easy this year. So a lot of things student athletes took for granted in the past, things like locker rooms or towels and laundry service, are things that, you know, are going to change a little this year. Can you talk a little bit about some of those changes in services and why they had to be made?
Sure. There are really strict guidelines about gyms and fitness centers and locker rooms and swimming pools from not only the state, but from the CDC. And so because of those restrictions, we just are not able to provide the kind of cleaning and sanitation that's required after every single individual use of whether it's showers or locker room. So yeah, those are two really big things. I think those are things that we do extremely well pre-COVID, and that is providing our student athletes with great services, you know, from their laundry every day, for their practice gear, to their locker rooms. And we're just not going to be able to provide access to those or to our general public, to be perfectly honest. We've really limited use because of those cleaning requirements.
Going forward, and right now, you know, it's certainly been tough for our coaches to recruit, and I'm sure we're reaching out right now to a lot of potential student athletes who are watching this video and want to know, when can I come up to campus? When can I, visit with a coach? Can you talk a little bit about recruiting and what that's going to look like, or at least what it looks like right now and what you think it could look like in the future?
Sure. So the UAA had a recruiting moratorium for all of our members throughout the entirety of the summer. As we move into the fall, that moratorium has been lifted, but many universities and colleges around the country still have restrictions about on-campus visits and off-campus recruiting travel. And that is the case for us as well at the moment, but we're working really closely with our admissions staff to find solutions to this, because we know that our coaches want to be able to make evaluations. We know that they want to be able to host families on campus, but with our no visitor rule right now, trying to keep our community and our essentially our campus bubble, that's an important piece of the decision making. But we're in constant contact with our admissions folks. So right now our coaches are really doing a lot of Zoom meetings, a lot of Zoom calls. John, I know you've done a great job of enhancing our sort of virtual facility tours so that people get a real sense of what we have to offer. And that's what we hope we can take advantage of right now.
We've spoken a lot about varsity athletics, but obviously that's not the only service that the department offers in terms of athletics. There's, club sports this semester, there's intramurals. Can you talk a little bit about those, what the offerings are going to look like beyond our varsity athletic programs?
So our club sports and intramurals are in a situation where they are typically practicing and competing, unsupervised. Now, our non-competition regulation also applies to our club sport teams. And so we're working closely with our club sports council to gather information from their national governing bodies about practicing in a safe environment. And they will be held to the same standards as our varsity sports. So in other words, they won't be doing things beyond what we are doing with our varsity athletes right now. In terms of intramurals, we've got to get even more creative and provide more, I think, individual kind of tournaments, and rather than starting right off with league play, because many of these are high contact and high risk sports that we typically would offer in the fall. So we're getting creative with what those activities are going to look like, John.
Let's circle back around a little and talk about some of the safety guidelines that have been put in place, whether, again, it's a varsity team or a club team. You mentioned a few of them, but can you go through what some of those safety guidelines are to try to help keep everyone healthy throughout the year?
Well, as everybody knows, wearing a mask and keeping physically distanced are two of the very, very best ways of keeping this virus from spreading. And so those are our two priorities: physical distancing and wearing masks. And we are requiring, the university is requiring masks essentially everywhere, except if you're in your office like I am by yourself. And we will require that for our varsity club and intramural participants at all times as well, both inside and outside. Keeping physically distant, certainly in these first several phases, is also going to be quite important. And that can obviously pose a little bit more of a challenge to our contact sports, but we're going to be concentrating on skill development rather than the sort of face-to-face contact that many of these sports require.
Said it before also, but it's an ever-changing situation. There's certainly a chance that things could ease up, that things could be more restrictive as time goes on. If there are changes, what is the communication plan for those?
Yeah, you're right. We have to be really flexible, John, because as you say, things could change at the drop of a hat. I think the communication across the university has been really excellent. There's certainly a group of administrators that are tracking a lot of the issues that might arise on campus, and we'll communicate as quickly as we can with either student athletes directly, or through our coaches, or through our Student Athlete Advisory Council, CASA. They've been doing a great job of getting the word out and getting the message out. So again, I think that's what's been working so far this summer, and we hope to be able to continue with that.
Amy, the two athletic facilities, Wyan and Veal, have been open now for, I think, a little over a week. Students have been back on campus for a little bit. Certainly you're on campus now in your office, so you've seen this a little bit. What are your impressions of how things are going so far, about how the return to campus has been so far?
It's been going well, certainly as could be expected on any campus when you're gathering larger groups of people together. There have been some growing pains and learning about the new regulations. And it feels a little quiet, to be perfectly honest. Our coaches are teaching their classes, so we have students in the building, and they're doing it both, with remote options as well. But I think a lot of the classes have gone a little bit more remote, and so we don't quite see the people walking across the quad or in our building that we typically would. So it's definitely a little bit more quiet.
I will tell you, for anyone who's ever parked at the Veal parking deck, it's unbelievably easy to find parking now, which is a little strange. When you talk about it being a little bit more empty than it's been in the past, that certainly seems to be the case, that it's certainly less populated on campus. Amy, we'll close with this, and just suggestions that you might have to our students or student athletes that can help keep everyone on campus and keep everyone healthy. What other suggestions might you have for that?
One of the things I've been telling our student athletes when I'm meeting with them for their compliance meetings is that, we're typically a high profile group of students on campus. We expect our student athletes to be, like really good citizens. And look, everybody wants to still be here. So their actions and their behavior, both on the field and when they're off campus, is going to be really important. And we're really trying to encourage them to, be good role models and make sure that they're following the guidelines and the more restrictive rules, which, they're not fun for anybody. But if people want to stay on campus and they want to keep working out with their teams, then we have a big part to play in that.
Amy, thank you so much for joining us today. And again, I think it's really informative and helpful. And, hopefully next time we do one of these, it'll be talking about, kind of the good old stuff about how great the programs are here and that we're back playing again, and that, we're kind of back to some state of normalcy fairly soon.
Thanks, John. I can't wait. It's a time that I never thought I'd see in my career, and one I hope I never see again. So I'm really anxious to get back on the field, in the pool, on the track, and see our kids compete, because that's the best part of this job.
Thank you, Amy. Really appreciate it.